There's a ton of noise out there. So how do you get decision makers to pay attention to your brand? Start a podcast and invite your ideal clients to be guests on your show. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show. Welcome back to another episode of B2B Growth. This is the content-based networking series, and I am joined today by my good friend, Chad Sanschagrin. He is the CEO of Cannonball Moments. Chad, how you doing today, man?
What's up, brother? How's it going? Thanks for having me on.
No problem, man. I have been so impressed with your execution of content-based networking. Full transparency, you're a customer of ours, so we help you produce your show, the Cannonball Mindset. But I really want to dive into things that you've done well beyond, what our team is doing for you. I think you've just done an exceptional job of, so many different elements that we're going to dive into in this episode. But before we do that, give a little bit of context. What do you do? What does your company do? And then once we have that context, I want to dive into some of the things that have been really impressive to me as I've watched you execute content-based networking from afar, or not from afar, from being a producer.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. So I own a corporate training company called Cannonball Moments. And what we do is we teach tactical and belief mindsets to corporations on a wide variety of topics, but sales and leadership and customer service is three of our big staples. So companies bring us in to put in together a program to take their sales organization to the next level and see themselves as a sales organization or a leadership organization, whatever it may be. So we spend a lot of time really in the trenches, getting to know our customers and how they sell, what their mindset is, and how to find what I call the 2 millimeter difference between that makes all the difference in the world and their results.
I love it. And so you started this podcast earlier this year, and the podcast is, Cannonball Mindset. And the thing that I noticed pretty early on as our team was producing your show, is it seemed like every interview you were doing, you're like, oh yeah, I'm hopping on a plane to go interview so-and-so. I was like, you're hopping on a plane?
Yeah.
What? Talk to us about that, because your propensity toward making all of your, I think maybe not all of them, but pretty much every one of your interviews has been an in-person interviews.
Yeah.
Why are you doing that? Why are you making that investment?
Yeah, it's crazy because somebody came up to me the other day and they said, Chad, I'm confused, but isn't the whole thing with podcasts that you can just do it over the phone? Why are you constantly on a plane? And so, for me, the first thing I had to understand was that the podcast it started out as a means to try to help grow my business. And, I hired you guys, I aligned with you guys. So you guys are the best, right? So if you haven't learned by now, I'm sure you have, James and I relationship, that I research the hell out of everything, right? So everything to me it may seem from the hip decision, but it's well researched. So I did all my research. I aligned with you guys, and you guys have been fantastic. And what I thought was going to be, slow to take off really took off really fast. And I think it's because the way I'm doing it, because the reason I don't do interviews over the computer as a rule of thumb, and I do them in person, is because for me, I'm all about trying to build the relationship so that I can leverage that relationship to make it mutually beneficial for me and the person that I'm interviewing, right? So this isn't, I think that in this day and age, we live in this Amazon Prime world where we want everything really fast and efficient. And I get that. And so podcasts is fast and efficient because I can get on the phone, I can get on a computer like this, I can spend 30 minutes with you. The podcast is done, I can load it. I could do twice as many podcasts if I just did them on the phone. The problem is it's all very transactional. And that's anti what I'm trying to accomplish in the long run.
Yeah. And I think that shows up in the research that you do pre-interview. You listen to every single podcast that your guests have been featured on, and you've featured some big names. I know you were just in Atlanta interviewing Jesse Itzler, the guy that started Marquee Jets. He's married to Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx. So you've built some phenomenal relationships. I know you're about to be in California interviewing the VP of sales at Hulu and interviewing the guy that started Lovesac, and so you're flying all over the place, building really meaningful relationships. And so, aside from the fact that you're getting on planes and meeting with these people in person and expediting those relationships so much faster than if you were just doing them via phone, I want to talk about how you're nurturing those relationships. Can you share some things that you've done, some stories of how you have nurtured some of the relationships that you've created through your show?
Yeah. I think again, it's all by design, and it's authentic. I think that it can't be. Everything is about intentionality. So the intentionality, the intention of me building these relationships is not to benefit just me, right? It really is. So I'll give you a great example. So I've spent a lot of time with VaynerMedia. Now, VaynerMedia, I didn't know anybody at VaynerMedia at all 6 months ago. Nobody.
Mm-hmm.
And just yesterday, I got a text from Claude Silver, their chief heart officer, who just became a mother the other day. I got a text from her with her picture of her daughter saying, "I can't wait for you to meet her." Now,
I love that.
So now Claude is an exceptional human being. I mean, an amazing human being. And I've interviewed James Orsini, the CEO. I'm interviewing Gary Vaynerchuk. So all of this has happened in 6 months. Well, the story with Claude is, one of the things I do is, so in my research, so this is a great story, and I'll try to abbreviate it, but this is a great story. So I get the opportunity to interview James Orsini and Claude Silver on the same day. Now, again, I live in Maryland. I said, I'm not doing this over the computer. I'm going to go to VaynerMedia, right? Because who the hell doesn't want to go to VaynerMedia, right? Who doesn't want that environment? So nope, I'm going to get on a train and I'm going to go up there. I'm going to bring my video guy because I'm videotaping all of this, which is another expense, and I can tell you why I videotape in a couple minutes. But so I get on a train and I go up there. Now the interview is scheduled from 2 to 3. So I'm supposed to be with James from 2 to 2:30 and Claude from 2:30 to 3 o'clock, something like that. So I get up there and James is first. Well, our interview goes long, and it's an exceptional, unbelievable interview. James Orsini is wise beyond his years, just amazing human being. So we end about 2:45, and we go out to the lobby, and Claude comes out and goes, "Oh my gosh, I have another meeting. I have 3 o'clock. We're not going to be able to do the podcast." And instead of getting frustrated and mad, I'm like, okay, no worries, no problem. Well, one of the things I do is I bring every person who does a podcast with me, I bring them a gift, a small token of just thank you. Now, the idea of the gift is it's not the same for everyone. So in all my hours of research and all the hours I do spending listening to podcasts or reading articles, following them on LinkedIn, whatever it may be, I really get to learn about the person from what I perceive, like from what I see. So one of the things I do is I bring 2 books for every person. Now, those 2 books are never the same. They're always what I believe this person would love this book based on what I've researched, and I don't think they've read it, or something that if they have read it, they can give to somebody else and better their life. And I tell them this. So I'm standing in the lobby. I said, "Hey, Claude, listen, can we reschedule?" She says, "Great." I take out my phone, reschedule. I said, "Hey, so before, I know we didn't do the interview today, but let me give you this gift so I don't have to bring it back to me. You can have it now because I appreciate your time." And she pulls out the first book, and the first book is Return to Love by Marianne Williamson, and one of my favorite books of all time. And she said, "This book is one of my favorite books of all time. I can't believe that you would think of this, right? This has got to be fate. This has got to be fate."
Yeah.
The next book is a book called When Things Fall Apart, right? Another unbelievable classic book. At this point, her eyes almost start welling up, and she goes, "There's something here." And she goes, "I have 15 minutes. Let's just go back to my office and talk." So we go back to our office and we sit in our office and we just talk. No podcast, no video. And from there, our relationship started to bloom. Like it literally started to take off. And we talked probably 5, 6, 7 times again before I came back and did the podcast 3 weeks later. I knew she was having her first child. We sent her a Cannonball Moments onesie, right? So we had a onesie date with Cannonball Moments. And her and I have become really, really close friends. And I went back to the podcast, and it was an amazing podcast because she is really an amazing human being. So the relationship, listen, Claude Silver may never hire Chad Sanschagrin or Cannonball Moments to come in and do training. Yep. And that's okay. But the relationship that we have is now really solidified. And I'm interviewing her boss, Gary Vaynerchuk, in January, I think it is. And she's going to be rooting for me. James Rossini is going to be rooting for me in my quest to help the podcast. She promotes my podcast. She's used the video, so I videotape all of these podcasts.
She's used it on her social channels. I've seen.
Oh, yeah, every person. Yep. So I upfront the cost for a video person, and every person, I send them a package. I send them a package of the videotape, so the video recording, edited and unedited, that they can do whatever they want with. Yep. I send them all the blogs and everything that you guys helped me create, right? So everything you guys do, they get all that. They get all the social media. So they're getting a package of stuff that says, hey, use this how you want. And if you want, I'll even brand it for you with your brand on it. So the goal is I'm trying to foster these relationships where they're mutually beneficial. I'm not just looking at them as a transaction to help me get more downloads. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, and that's what I love so much about what you're doing and your approach to this. There's so much depth in it for you because you genuinely care about adding tangible value to the person. You're not just doing this to, get value for yourself and like, oh yeah, once I know this person, it's going to map to, business opportunities. You are genuinely wanting to add value to them and to actually have a meaningful relationship. And that's something that I care so deeply about. I'm not getting on a plane and doing all of our interviews in person, but I'm so inspired by your heart and your desire to have not just relationships, but meaningful, deep relationships that are fueled by, the research that you're doing, the thoughtfulness in the custom gifts that you're getting for every guest. And it's not just a ruse so that you can ask them for their business on the back end. You just said, Claude is likely never going to hire Cannonball to come in and do training, but that relationship matters so much to you. And in that particular case, it may not map to business, but with a lot of the other folks that you're interviewing, that thoughtfulness, that care, that research, it's very likely that it is going to turn into business opportunities with a lot of your other guests. I want to have you share a story that you told me offline just now, Chad. It's about a keynote that you're doing in Seattle in the next couple of weeks and how you went about doing the outreach to get a very, your market, one of the markets that you serve is a very well-known name in that space. You were able to lock in an interview with this person. Can you talk about how you went about doing that?
Yeah, certainly. So one of the things is I travel a ton for work, right? So outside of the podcast, I go to a lot of my clients. I have clients as far away as Dubai and as close as Maryland. So I live in Maryland. My office is in Maryland. So, and everywhere in between. And so whenever I travel, I try to always find a way that I can do a podcast, do an interview, do a sales call, something with wherever I'm going to be, right? So I want to try to make it as efficient as possible. So I'm giving a keynote this week. I'm giving a keynote, and immediately I have Morgan, who's our director of operations. I said, "All right, Morgan, she knows I'm going. Here's the state I'm going to. Who else is there? Who else is there? What great thought leaders there? What clients are there? What prospects are there?" And so we come up with this prospect. And she sends me the information. We have a process that we go through and say, all right, let's do the homework. Let's do the research. What do we know about? Like we're going all Olivia Pope on it, right? We're literally trying to figure, right? What's their likes? What's their dislikes? We're finding everything we can. And then we relate that to what we already what we have. So in the research, I found that this person was a huge fan of Gary Vaynerchuk. Well, how do I know that? Well, because in their Facebook page that was not public, but parts of it were public, in their About section, they follow Gary Vaynerchuk, and then they like both of Gary Vaynerchuk's books, right? So the 2 books he's written, or 3 books he's written. So that they've checked this off. So that now I'm going, okay, where's the link here? Where's the link? Well, I'm interviewing Gary Vaynerchuk. So the email that corresponds to the outreach to them was, hey, this is who I am. I'm a big follower of yours. I've been a big follower of yours. And again, I knew this before. I knew this company before Morgan told me, but I've been a big follower of yours. This is what I'm coming to your town to give a keynote. I'm going to be there a day early. I would love to get you on the podcast. I'm going to have my production crew and my everybody there. Tell you a little bit about the podcast. We've had great minds. We've interviewed these people. We have upcoming Gary Vaynerchuk. I literally almost put it in there as a throwaway, not a throwaway. It's supposed to be a throwaway, right?
An add-on,
An add-on, but it's very intentional, because when that person reads the email, what's the first thing they're going to see is, man, this guy's interviewed Gary Vaynerchuk. He's going to interview Gary Vaynerchuk. I love that guy. We must, oh man. So now they open the door. They open the doors to you coming in. They're a lot more open because there's that commonality. And there's
legitimacy and commonality. Correct. And
that's exactly right. And so people want to be, the challenge is what I believe the challenge is. And listen, I'm a sales guy. This is all about sales, right? Somebody's always selling somebody, and I'm selling them on why they should start a relationship with me. Now, I'm not, to your point earlier, I truly believe that if you just do the right things for the right reasons, the return on investment comes. Now, I don't mean that to sound hokey, but I mean it to say, if you do the right things and you're guided by, the true desire to want to improve people's lives or be part of people's lives, then it'll pay off eventually. Now, that doesn't mean you can fly blind into anything. You have to be strategic about it. So I'm doing things for the right reasons, but I'm still strategic about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's not just praying out to the universe, oh, please make this come to fruition. I'm saying, this whole investment of flying, there's people that say, well, listen, what if you don't have the money? Listen, I never had 6 weeks ago or 6 months ago, whenever it was I started this podcast, I didn't have the money to start a podcast, and I didn't understand, but I'm hedging my bet here. It's either going to be the best thing in the world because it's going to build great relationship, it's going to pay dividend down the road, or it's going to be a financial nightmare. But I'm hedging my bet, right? I'm hedging my bet here that now I have these. I'm saying, here's a great example. So I have a relationship with somebody that I built on the podcast, right? So this guy, Jesse Itzler, who, if you haven't heard of Jesse Itzler, if you haven't read his books or gone through his course, you got to, right?
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned I was at his house doing the podcast. Well, this guy owns the Atlanta Hawks. He's sought after by everybody. He's 2 New York Times best-selling books, married to Sarah Blake. And on Tuesday, I'm interviewing him in his house.
That's insane.
And Sarah's there. I meet Sarah. She's having a meeting. I get to meet Sarah. But here's the thing. He says, and he even mentioned it in the podcast, he said, I said to him, you've done 18 podcasts. He goes, how did you know that? I said, because I listened to every single one of them. And he goes, you did? I said, well, listen, I'm not going to come in, Jesse, and I don't want to ask you the same questions that 18 other people ask you, because if that's the case, you can just pre-record it and send it out to people. Like, I want different. I want something that people don't know that they couldn't figure out. So I've read, and he said, well, just to let you know, of those 18 podcasts, I've only ever invited 2 people in my house to do them. You and Rich Roll.
That's insane.
Rich Roll has 1 million downloads on a podcast. I'm now going to his house in Connecticut. He invited me to his house in Connecticut for Hell on the Hill, which is this huge event he's done. I'm saying, so there's now a relationship. None of that happens. If I see Jesse as a transaction to get on the podcast and I do it over the computer. None of it.
Yep. I completely agree, Chad. I mean, your heart, your mentality, your intention, how you're executing content-based networking is phenomenal to me. I'm learning so much from you in seeing how you're executing this. So I really appreciate you jumping on here and sharing your wisdom, your insights, what you've learned through this process with our listeners. There's somebody listening to this, they want to stay connected with you. They want to learn more about Cannonball Moments. What's the best way for them to go about doing that?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So, they can find me on LinkedIn, obviously, Chad Sanschagrin or Cannonball Moments. They can go to our website, cannonballmoments.com. the best way for me that I have found is to get a hold of me through Instagram, Chad Sanschagrin, or Facebook. Or listen, here's the craziest thing. I would love for people just to call if you need something, call my cell phone, send carrier pigeons, do whatever you want. But reach out. And if I can be of assistance, then, I'm here to help in any way possible.
I love it. Chad, thank you so much, man, for your heart and how intentional you are and your willingness to share it with the world, man. So I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, brother.
Digital marketing agencies have a tough job. You have to stay on top of the latest marketing strategies for your clients and your agency. What if there was a way you could address both at the same time? Imagine your agency putting out content with greater quality and quantity. Envision bringing your clients a turnkey solution for one of B2B marketing's fastest growing media strategies, podcasting. You know all those clients asking for your help with their account-based marketing efforts? Picture being the first to bring them the idea of content-based networking, showing them the proven strategy for breaking into their most coveted accounts. Here's the concept. Sweetfish Media is looking to work with a limited number of innovative agencies interested in a new partnership model. We produce a podcast for your agency. You introduce the power of podcasting and Sweetfish services to your clients. Everybody wins. Learn more at sweetfishpartners.com.